Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, everybody. Let me get right to it. Okay, first of all, I live in Oxford, Ohio, outside of the campus of Miami University. Thank God, outside of the campus. And the other day, I was making, again, some just very basic observations. There was a news story that came on regarding the encampment protests against the war in Gaza. And, of course, the genocide that's taking place over there. Again, we are well aware. We know what's going on, and we know the international and national crimes that have taken place, and we fully understand. What's interesting is that there's a handful, and when I say handful, I mean a literal just handful of students actually doing any protesting. Now, again, I don't know what they think that they're actually going to be accomplishing here, and I have about a minute and a half of audio that I want to play. But again, they set up some tents in one of the fields in between some of the academic buildings, and they have some signs, and they're just there by themselves, and that's basically it. Again, it's about 15 students is all. They're really accomplishing absolutely nothing. And what's interesting, and frankly, this is kind of the larger point that I just wanted to make right out of the gate here regarding this, is that these students don't give a damn about anything that really happens locally. They don't care about any atrocities that are happening with our government, which is why, unfortunately, with these individuals, although they're attempting to make some kind of a point that really isn't going to make any kind of a difference whatsoever. I mean, they don't understand the enemy that they're up against. Again, Miami University was on a list of 130 some odd colleges and universities that were all pre-planned to engage in these protests dating back to November of last year. So it's all scripted, and they're being used, and they don't know it, and they don't care, and it's all a giant distraction. They, of course, also don't have the vision to be able to see that the vast majority of students aren't even participating in what it is that they're participating in. They also probably incorrectly believe that that means that all the other students are pro-Israel, which is not true. Most other students are more concerned about atrocities happening in our country, which again, as I just stated, is actually the larger problem. These students don't understand that there are crimes taking place, big ones, within their own town and within their own university. They're being lied to by their professors and misled. It's a giant brainwashing operation. They don't even know that. But because a particular news story pops up on their TV or on their cell phone, they feel the need to then participate with whatever that is, but they don't want to do the real legwork as to what's really going on in the very town where they live. So again, one of the, I think, larger aspects that is remarkably unfortunate is that these individuals will cling onto something that is quote-unquote global, but they won't cling on to something that is local, that has far more of a reaching impact on them as citizens of America and, of course, residents of this town and university, and it just shows how brainwashed they are. And again, that's continuing to be the much bigger problem, but let me play the audio from this particular outlet here. Again, this is Channel 9, ABC, WCPO out of Cincinnati. Again, it was titled, Miami University Students Set Up Encampment to Protest the War in Gaza. Students are demanding the school take action. Again, what do they think a university can actually do about it? They can't do anything about it. It has nothing to do with them. So not only is the thing that they're participating in accomplishing nothing, they're asking people who have nothing to do with it to do something about it. That would be like walking into a Blockbuster Video and asking the person behind the counter to come outside and help you change your tire. Blockbuster Video doesn't exist, of course. Used to back in the day. And it's just irrelevant. It has no meaning or comparison whatsoever. It's ridiculous. So anyway, here's the audio from this particular news outlet because I'm going to tell you what I saw on the campus after I read this particular article. Anyway, but here's Thursday night's early Friday morning and their basic little encampment, and they have their news outlet person there to report on the happenings. It's a whole 15 students in tents. Unbelievable. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Students here at Miami University want one thing, and that is an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. They know their university doesn't have the power to create that. What they would like is for them to release any public ties that they have to Israel and then take away any money they have going to that country or any sort of financial ties. Let's go ahead and get out of the way here so I can show you exactly what we're dealing with here on campus. Again, a relatively small crowd, only about a dozen or so students. This has been completely peaceful from what we've seen over the past several hours here. You'll see one sign that says, hands off, ceasefire now. And that has, of course, been the common message across the country as many students are hoping for an end to the war in Gaza and some of the human rights concerns that people really across the country have been sharing in terms of how Palestinian people are being treated, how Israeli people are being treated in Gaza at the moment. So we did get a statement from Miami University overnight. It says the safety of our students is top priority, and that priority will guide university actions in this unfolding situation. Students for Justice for Palestine, a student organization, held a march yesterday evening and were joined by the Young Democratic Socialists of America. As with any demonstration, university staff have present to maintain student safety and ensure that university policy is followed. The problem here is Miami University says these students behind me are not technically in compliance and not following the university's orders. So we'll wait to see exactly how this evolves. But I can tell you, campus police have been here overnight. No arrests have been made. They're more so monitoring the situation, as are we. We'll let you know how things develop throughout the morning. But for now, we are live at Miami University in Oxford. Kristen Swilley, WCPO 9 News.
It's not even a story. It's just not. I mean, they're having to find one, and they can't find one. Again, they make comparisons to Kent State in 1970, and oh my God. Again, it's beyond laughable. It's like the fluoride version of a protest. and again, if they want the university to cut ties with Israel or not receive money from them, good luck. Every university, by and large, certainly based on size, has some ties to the Jewish lobby. And their presence within these universities, along with the CIA and everybody else, which I've been over before on the show, they're all there all of the time. Again, I drove through campus after this report, and I saw nothing. There were no encampments, there were no protests, there were no signs, there was nothing. The only disappointing thing I saw, besides, of course, the brainwashed students walking from one building to the next, were these Grubhub robots, which I've brought up on the show before. These six-wheeled, robots that run around. They have a flag. They're low to the ground, of course, because they have wheels. And then they're just rolling around, and they're taking university food from university dining halls from one place to another. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And people are walking around them, and they're looking at them and walking with them, and it's just dumb. It's a damn good thing that those weren't around when I attended Miami, because I would have tipped them over. I'm certain. I mean, I just would have kicked them, tipped them over, and that would have been the end of it. And people would have shouted and said, well, what are you doing? That's not right. Don't do that. And then they would have picked them up. And I've been like, all right. And just keep walking. I mean, I'd have been cited for that, I'm certain. But with that aside for a second, again, another large point that I want to make here is that during a moment like this, it's very interesting, I think, as to who says what and who doesn't say anything. And it's in these pockets of time where you can really get a lot of information and sort of see the sick underbelly and even make some general predictions as to what's likely to occur in the future. Specifically, again, regarding student movement and movements and what it is that they seek to do potentially in the future on college campuses, again, even if there's another staged sit-in or protest of some kind. But there's a number of communications here that I want to read first, and this was sent to me by our Virginia professor. And this is a letter that the University of Virginia put out to the entire university community. And I wanted to read this because I think it's rather telling, in particular from a very specific angle. It may not be a big deal, but it could be something, again, that occurs in the future, because one of the odd things is that we're watching a lot of these university people negotiate with students, almost as if students themselves are some kind of a union, and like they actually have almost a union representative that speaks for the students, and they're the go-between from the student population to the president's office, and they want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we can negotiate and reach an agreement and blah, blah, blah. And as you would expect, this is happening on all of those university campuses. So here's what this letter says. It says, quote, "To the university community, this is a tense and trying time for higher education, as the conflict in the Middle East has given rise to turmoil on campuses across the country. This comes at the end of a difficult academic year, one in which many of our own students and their families have been affected by the violence and heartbreaking loss of innocent lives in Israel and Gaza." It says, beginning Tuesday afternoon, again, I'm so sorry. It has nothing to do with what's going on campuses. And again, the very people who attend these campuses don't know that they're run by the Jewish lobby and infiltrated by the Jewish lobby. That's why it says in the Q posts, infiltration instead of invasion. Because we've always been infiltrated. By whom, exactly? Well, we know who. But we're also being invaded, aren't we? And who's facilitating, of course, that invasion at our borders and flying illegals in? This is way bigger than what any university can possibly handle because, again, all of this chaos is basically fertilized within these actual environments themselves. I digress, and I'll continue here. It says, beginning Tuesday afternoon of this week, which would have been last Tuesday, a small group, including members of our community, participated in a peaceful public demonstration near the UVA chapel. Until last evening, it said, they complied with requests to adhere to university policies, including a long-standing prohibition on erecting tents absent a permit. That's what they're getting and what they got the Miami University students for. Same thing. We also learned last evening, after the protesters had made a public call for others to join, that individuals unaffiliated with the university, who also presented some safety concerns, had joined them. Antifa, and adults, and Jewish lobby members, yeah. Despite numerous requests to comply with multiple university policies, the protesters refused. Early this morning, Chief of Police Tim Longo offered a final warning to the protesters, reminding them once again of their university policy violations and pleading for a peaceful resolution. That request was ignored. We hoped and tried to handle this locally, but when UPD's attempts to resolve the situation were met with physical confrontation and attempted assault, it became necessary to rely on assistance from Virginia State Police. This afternoon, the police declared an unlawful assembly, issued no trespass orders to those who refused to disperse, and arrested those who continued to refuse dispersal. Where were you during the Black Lives Matter nonsense? Where'd y'all go then? Funny how they never showed up then, did they? Buildings were burned, everybody was running around. Why, because the cops were outnumbered? Is that why they didn't participate? Is it because it's a university campus and they don't think that anybody can carry a gun or does carry a gun? Again, the hypocrisy in all of this is glaring. The letter continues here. It says, quote, UVA permits and strongly encourages speech in a wide variety of venues, facilities, times, and formats. In fact, making space for speech and expression is an essential part of what it means to live and learn at a university like ours. The UVA statement on free expression and free inquiry makes our commitment to expressive activity clear. Freedom of speech is not only protected by the Constitution. Funny how they reference that now. Like all of a sudden now they care about the Constitution. It's interesting. I mean, they wipe their backsides with it on a constant basis, but, you know. And they say, of course, it's a bedrock university value. It says, this entire year in particular, we have given wide berth to free expression, including protests, because this is at the heart of what universities do. Protests or free expression? Because that's interesting. Again, very hypocritical of them to say that, because that's not true either. It says, that said, public universities like ours rely on time, place, and manner policies, which are a way of ensuring that speech is free but does not interfere with the rights of others. These policies must be applied consistently without regard to the content of expression. whether the protest is peaceful or whether we agree or disagree with the cause. The neutral and even-handed enforcement of these rules is the only way to ensure that all members of the community have an equal opportunity to participate in the life of the university. We also have a duty to ensure the physical safety of our community. Yes, sure you do. Unfortunately, a small group today made a choice to willingly break the rules after being given many opportunities to comply, and then refused to leave the site voluntarily. I sincerely wish it were otherwise, but this repeated and intentional refusal to comply with reasonable rules intended to secure the safety, operations, and rights of the entire university community left us with no other choice than to uphold the neutral application and enforcement of those rules. I recognize and respect that some will disagree with our decisions. The entire episode was upsetting, frightening, and sad. It was also an aberration. This semester, we have seen the vast majority of our students, faculty, and staff rise to the occasion and build bridges across religious, ethnic, and political division. We have shared meals, engaged in respectful discussion, and listened to experts. Jesus, these people. They've participated in academic programming, held peaceful protests and rallies, and met with university leaders. I am grateful to for the countless students, faculty, and staff who have listened generously and spoken thoughtfully, even in the face of deep disagreement. That approach is what makes UVA a strong community it is. Best, Jim Ryan, unquote. Again, in stereotypical fashion, they use the situation to pat themselves on the back. We do the best things here, and that's what makes UVA great, is that we do this and we do that. But yes, a lot of these groups have been infiltrated by numerous individuals from the outside. They've purposely shown up to stir the pot. That's the point. There's no doubt about it. There was also this. Again, absolutely ridiculous that anybody's negotiating with students when you run a giant corporation, which is what a university is. This is Columbia Law Review's Administrative Board. Student editors call for exam cancellations out of concerns for equity and academic integrity. It says the following from Columbia's Law Review and Law School, apparently. It says, Dear CLS, community. Again, everything's a community. Everything. It says, as the Administrative Board of Student Editors of the Columbia Law Review, we urge the law school to cancel exams and give all students passing grades for their work throughout the semester. In the alternative, it is our view that the law school, at the very least, observes the community's overwhelming call for mandatory pass-fail during the horrific time for our campus. I don't think I have the words. I just don't have the words here. They want a cookie because times got hard for them, so they think. But yet you throw these individuals who claim that they want to be lawyers into a real courtroom where they have to be a real lawyer. And then what? And not even a courtroom. They just have an office and they maybe work for a firm, or they work by themselves, or they do whatever it is that they do, or they advocate for this or that, or they just research, or again, whatever it may be. But if something gets hard for them on a global scale, or something gets hard for them in the workplace, then what? They want a free lollipop and a day off? Is that what they think? Is that what they think they're going to get? They're going to get fired. That's what'll happen. It goes on here. It says, the violence we witnessed last night has irrevocably shaken many of us on the review. We know this to be the same for a majority of our classmates. Videos have circulated of police clad in riot gear mocking and brutalizing our students. The events of last night left us and many of our peers unable to focus and highly emotional during this tumultuous time. This only follows the growing distress that many of us have felt for months as the humanitarian crisis abroad continues to unfold, and as the blatant antisemitism, Islamophobia, and racism on campus have escalated. Our response is not disproportionate to the outsized impact it has had on many of us in the community, a crowd of people that proudly represent their membership in a white supremacist, neo-fascist hate group were storming our campus just days ago. Again, that's the end of it, but what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Anybody else participating in any kind of a protest has never called for all of their exams or law exams or whatever it may be, whatever exams they're taking, to be canceled because in the last, few weeks they've had their feelings hurt. And because, well, we just can't take all of the turmoil that's taking place on a global scale, and it's just exhausting for all of us, and blah, blah, blah. Again, these are not students who care about America. They don't care about what's going on here. They're not protesting illegal aliens invading our borders and being flown in by church organizations, synagogues, and 1,000 other things. They're not protesting any of that. They're not protesting unemployment or veterans' rights or the abuse of veterans or homelessness or anything. That's not what they're focused on. It's the flavor of the month that showed up on their idiot box, and that's all they respond to. Again, the hypocrisy is glaring. But again, it's also in moments like this where you can actually start to figure out that there's a very nefarious aspect of all of this that's rather well hidden to some, but noticeable to some others, such as myself, and I'm sure you as well. This comes from the Gray Zone, or the Gray Zone News, at the Gray Zone News on X. And it says the following. The NYPD crackdown on Columbia University students was led by a member of the school's faculty. Rebecca Weiner, or Weiner, is a Columbia professor who leads an NYPD intel division that maintains an office in Tel Aviv. Weiner said student rhetoric, quote unquote, necessitated the violent raid. And then again, there's a picture of her here. It says, "Congratulations, Rebecca Weiner, Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism, NYPD. Columbia crackdown led by university professor doubling as NYPD spook." Again, I got to tell you, this is a huge problem for a number of reasons. You have a Jewish professor at Columbia University working with the New York Police Department to help an intel division who has an intel division and maintains an office in Tel Aviv, Israel. Infiltration instead of invasion. It's right here. This should show you how deep the Jewish lobby goes. They're inside police departments. We know that for a fact. We've known that for a very long time. They're inside all of these universities. They're in the back pockets of these professors, and the professors are in their back pockets also. I mean, hell, this woman could be a CIA agent or Mossad, or both. Who's to say? And why wouldn't she be? She's relaying intel from one place to another, in a foreign country. For what? For the reason of controlling a particular event, or at the very least, influencing law enforcement from an outside entity in order to respond in an appropriate manner or in a violent manner or whatever it may be. Again, I'm not an expert, but I think that's called espionage. And I should also bring up, again, I'm not defending the students on that campus or the Antifa members who rushed that building and just thought that sitting inside of the building was a good idea with the lights off and we're going to break some windows and tip over furniture and that will get people to stop bombing Palestinians. I mean, those people are retarded. But the point is again, this seems to me to be espionage here. You have open professors working with foreign intelligence agencies. Arrest this woman. Hell, hang her for treason. Put her in Gitmo. But here she is, almost bragging about it, like it's not that big of a deal. This is a big problem. They're flexing their muscles here. I think that's a big problem too. And again, like all the hypocrisy that's taking place, it's glaring here. They're flexing their muscles and they're showing people, perhaps for the first time, look where we are. We are everywhere. We have control over all of these organizations, including law enforcement. And all we have to do is get on the phone with one another, make a few calls, make a few, a few threats, remind everybody that they're blackmailed or that this person is or that person is, remind everybody who controls the money and where the funding all goes. And then before you know it, we'll get exactly the result that we're after, and the right thing will end up happening, as far as they're concerned anyway. This is so deep. This is not face value. I mean, this is not black and white. There are multiple dimensions here. But again, the students have no idea. They're not protesting this. I mean, they're not protesting espionage by one of their own professors who clearly has the hooks in NYPD via Tel Aviv and intelligence services, which again is Mossad. You want to protest something, protest that. But they're not going to. It's not their concern because the TV didn't tell them. Now, shifting gears here, but again, same avenue. I wanted to read this too. This was a hilarious statement, and I absolutely love it. Again, no one makes statements like this on a constant basis unless Jews are involved. This right here should show everybody how deep the lobby goes and how big their hooks are. This is the real problem. This is the infiltration instead of invasion again. It's right here. Anytime there's a Jewish issue, politicians, presidents, university presidents, and employers, and this, that, and the other, they all send out these memos. They all take a stance on the flavor of the month and whatever it may be. But it's only when it's the Jewish lobby or having anything to do with Jews when they bring this up, when they feel the need to make these statements. They don't make public statements about anything else. Again, they're not making public statements about their stances on very serious issues that are happening right here in our own country. Just to make it clear, here's my statement on this. It's like the Black Lives Matter nonsense from 4 years ago. You had to have like a blank, whatever the hell it was, on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram, never have been, never will be, but it was one of those, you had to put like an all black screen or an all black picture on your Instagram feed, and that showed everybody that you were all in for all Black Lives Matter, and the Black Lives Matter protests are authentic and organic and important, and I stand with all of them. Yeah, again, absolutely nuts, and that right there continues to show the social engineering that takes place. But this right here, perfect example of who controls this individual, and this individual is Jewish. Not to mention the way that they write their statement is just classic. It really is. This is Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs in Washington, D.C. She says the following here in her statement. This was her statement on voting against H.R. 6090. So good for her for voting against it, but you're not going to believe the reason why she voted against it. Again, the entire thing's unconstitutional. But as far as she's concerned, well, that's not the biggest issue. It's part of it, but not the biggest one. So here's her statement. Again, always playing the victim before making a point. She said the following, quote, "As a Jewish woman, I've experienced anti-Semitism all my life. I've been called a kike while I was waiting for a drink at a bar when I was at college. I've heard too many quote-unquote jokes to count about my frizzy hair and my big nose. I remember my classmates who thought it was funny to say people were being Jewed, quote-unquote, when someone was being frugal. I know the hatred and ignorance that lie behind all these comments and how they can quickly escalate into violence, and I'm deeply concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism in San Diego and across the country. Quote, but I do not believe that anti-Zionism is inherently anti-Semitism. I support Israel's right to exist, but I also know many people who question whether Israel should exist as a Jewish state who are deeply connected to their Judaism. Quote, today I voted against H.R. 6090 because it fails to effectively address the very real rise of anti-Semitism, all while defunding colleges and universities across the country and punishing many, if not all, of the nonviolent protesters speaking out against the Israeli military's conduct. Conflating free speech and hate crimes will not make Jewish students any safer. This bill would stifle First Amendment rights to free speech and free assembly. It would distract from real anti-Semitism in our efforts to address it," unquote. Again, you can tell that the First Amendment isn't her first priority. Her first priority is playing the victim. And then her second priority is we have to get rid of anti-Semitism any way we can. But we have to do it lawfully, but we need to get rid of it. And I'm concerned about the rise of quote-unquote anti-Semitism. First of all, again, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Jews make fun of whites. Whites make fun of them. Everybody kind of just makes fun of everybody. It's just kind of the way that it is from time to time. So what? So what? Again, let bygones be bygones. Leave people alone. Don't be an asshole. It's really very simple. That's all. Very simple. And we don't have to get along, and we don't have to coexist, quote unquote, as the bumper sticker says. We don't have to do any of that. Just leave us alone. Don't make our towns dirty. Don't steal from us. I mean, it's very basic stuff. But again, there's just a lot of mental illness here. And in certain underlying hidden messages where you can tell that this is a politician, which means, of course, well, she's obviously a politician, but she's clearly trying to satisfy endless individuals with that statement. No doubt about it. And in particular, her handlers and the people who fund her. That's who she's trying to satisfy. Now, with that aside, what we also know, of course, is the media has a giant role to play in this as well. They have to stoke the flames as well, and they have to stoke the sympathy and all of that, and we know who runs the media outlets also. In the last war video, episode 600, there's, I believe, about a 5 or 7 minute video of a female Jewish student by the name of Shirak Tartak. She's the editor-in-chief of the Yale Free Press. This woman, girl, made the rounds on every major news outlet for telling people that she was hit in the eye and hospitalized from a Palestinian flagpole. And this entire thing, by the way, is caught on film. And what's odd, of course, is that not only is she standing around a great deal of Palestinians, and she's sort of standing there, again, around, well, she's not by herself, but she's around others. And she's just standing there. She's not chanting anything or saying anything. But minutes pass as these students are just basically doing circles. They're just walking in circles and they're chanting and wasting their time and doing whatever it is that they're doing. And a flag goes by. And then she just immediately yells out, "Oh my gosh, my eye." And she just screams. And that's it. The flag never even touched her. It's obvious it never even touched her. The woman is shorter than the flagpole. She's shorter than the top of the flagpole. But I'm not kidding. This girl, again, made her rounds, young girl, made the rounds on every major news outlet. We're talking local affiliates in the area, Fox News, CNN. She was on all of them, telling the same sob story. She has no wounds. She has not even a mark on her face. I could feel it hit my eye, and it was just terrible, and now I have headaches. And I mean, it was just awful. Again, who's believing this? These people are lying constantly. I don't want to say it's in their DNA, but good Lord, what kind of a person do you have to be, mentally ill clearly, to go on endless news outlets lying through your teeth about something that's clearly on film that anybody can see? That's a serious mental illness. It's borderline schizophrenia. She's not well. And the people that are lying about particular involvement in any of this, again, not well. But it should show everybody, again, the reach that the Jewish lobby has. It's massive. It can't possibly get any bigger. Again, you see the memes out there, the United States of Israel. It basically is. And it's terrible. Now, as we know, H.R. 6090, getting back to that very quickly, we know that in itself is based on, of course, the made-up definition of the fake word anti-Semitism, and more specifically, the constant quote-unquote working definition of anti-Semitism from the IHRA, the non-legally binding working definition. So if it's non-legally binding, Why is it now tossed into proposed law or an act or legislation, so to speak? Again, it means because they add the word working, that they can add anything to it in the future. Now, as you would expect, the ADL is also involved in this without a doubt. And the ADL, of course, is running point on this entire thing because they're consistently coming up with names, numbers, phrases, places, references that they deem to be quote-unquote anti-Semitic. But I wanted to read through again the bullet points of this quote-unquote working definition one more time very quickly, because these are the things, again, that they openly say that they are involved in this definition but are not limited to. So here's what it says. It says contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in the religious sphere could, taking into account the overall context, include but are not limited to, says the following, quote, calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. That's the first one. The next one, making mendacious, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews such, or the power of Jews as collective, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. You've got to be kidding me. Again, endless people have brought this up throughout history, that when they have to make laws, or they attempt to make laws against criticizing them, it's usually the end of them, because this is their last move. It's what a criminal organization would do. It goes on here, it says, accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing. That was one of my favorites. Real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. I have to tell you, it's just delusional. It's delusional. Now, it's been written before that a lot of this delusion, and of course I'm checking all their boxes right now, I fully understand and I do not care, but it's been written before on numerous occasions by endless people that not only is this clearly a mental disorder, again, it's beyond denial. It's sociopathology, I believe, without a doubt, if not way worse than that. But it's been written at length by endless people that much of this thinking and this wavelength of thought is not only one that a criminal would have, but it's more specifically and potentially been brought about as a result of inbreeding. And I'm not kidding. I've come across that numerous times. I wish I had the references in front of me right now, and I don't, but my apologies. But again, it's been asked before. Why is it that these individuals behave this way and then make these kinds of moves and say these kinds of things? That there's no way that they could ever be involved in anything bad because bad things have happened to them, so they say. That's a mental disorder. But to have that so widespread across so many of them, why is that the case? And again, it's been written, it's because of inbreeding. That there's something wrong with what's going on with them. Again, I'm not saying it's that way with everybody, who's to really know. But again, much of this behavior is written into their religious doctrine and their actual writings. I watched a very interesting 15 or 14-minute breakdown of an individual who read the Talmud. And they basically, again, said it's basically a book about sin and then them writing laws about justifying their participation in sin. Whereas if other individuals do it, it's wrong, but if they do it, it's okay. And then doubling down on the excuses as to why they do what they do. That's exactly what this is. That's exactly what this working definition of a fake word is. It's amazing. It goes on here. It says, denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, example, gas chambers, or intentionally of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II. And then in parentheses, it says the Holocaust. Honestly, if you have to bring it up, then it should be questioned, should it not? Shouldn't this alone be, wow, what an odd thing to say? I mean, it's that meme all over again. Again, it's glaring here. You're giving people a reason to look into real history. Why don't you want us to look into quote-unquote gas chambers? Was it because they didn't exist? No, they didn't exist. But here you are saying, well, they exist because we say so. And if you don't agree with us, well, then you're an anti-Semite. It's exhausting. Here's the next one. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. There it is. They have to say it twice. They have to double down on it. The next one. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged properties of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. Well, if the shoe fits, your actions pretty much prove that point, do they not? Denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, example by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Well, it was never yours. That's all. It was given to you through a contract by moneylenders, and yeah, we know the history of that. It was never yours. And then the next one here, applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. Again, they don't even hear themselves anymore. The next one is using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, example, claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel to characterize Israel or Israelis. Unbelievable. The next one, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Well, yeah, that's completely inaccurate. It's not anti-Semitic to say that, it's just a wrong statement. It's a wrong statement. And of course, they perpetuate their own use of the derogatory term Nazi. It's nuts. The last one, well, although it won't be the last one, will it? But it is here. Holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the State of Israel. Well, we can see that that's not the case either. There are numerous Jews who happen to live in Israel, and they don't like what the Netanyahu regime is doing. So, I mean, that's correct. But then they have these three last points, which again aren't bullet points, but they're basically just like, oh, by the way, we forgot these. We forgot to put this in the bullet pointed list, but we want to make these bold, and we want everybody to understand that there's no way that we should be criticized when it comes to any crime whatsoever. The first one says anti-Semitic acts are criminal when they are so defined by law, for example, denial of the Holocaust or distribution of anti-Semitic materials in some countries. The next one says criminal acts are anti-Semitic when the targets of attacks, whether they are people or property, such as buildings, schools, places of worship, and cemeteries, are selected because they are or are perceived to be Jewish or linked to Jews. You mean like the underground tunnels and the popping out of sewer holes and manholes and all that other stuff and the stained mattresses? That when we simply ask questions about that, we're being anti-Semitic. Interesting. The last one, anti-Semitic discrimination, is the denial to Jews of opportunities or services available to others and is illegal in many countries. And yet, when they deny services to anybody who isn't Jewish, it's not a crime. Strange. Again, this is not normal behavior. That's my much larger point. This is, we know the dangers of collectivism. Okay, it's communism. And of course, who created communism? Where does that word come from? We know where it comes from. It's these people. They're the ones that created it. We know that, but this is a level of collectivism that is certainly against the masses. It's against us. It's against anybody who isn't them. That's why they call us goyim. That's the whole point. And again, they have rather strong language when it comes to us and what they think needs to happen to us because we are not them. This is not, you can't, a logical person can't possibly defend any of this. They just can't. Now, let me make mention of this in conclusion, and I promise I'm going to move on to other things. But this was a particular post that was put out by Israel.tpusa.com. Again, it's like Judeo-Christian. When someone says that, just sends a chill down my spine. Having a website that is Israel.turningpointusa.com is ridiculous. And as we know, Turning Point USA means turning the United States into Israel. That's what it really means. But there's a little statement that they put out here regarding Charlie Kirk. And they just wanted to remind everybody that they own Charlie Kirk. And they own a number of people. And they fund a bunch of people. Again, if you've ever wondered, why is it that Charlie Kirk all of a sudden started making all of these campus tours and finding himself on a stage when he looks green behind the ears? With that goofy face and that giant head like a spider bit him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not because he's a fast talker. It's not because he's America first. It's because he has handlers and he's owned, if not blackmailed. So back in 2019, he was a part of a conference, a Turning Point USA with, TPUSA Stands with Israel conference that I'm sure met in Washington, D.C. or wherever the hell they met. But it says the following. It says, below we provide a list of articles and videos so that you can fully understand Charlie's and Turning Point USA's unapologetic support of Israel and the Jewish people. Charlie is one of the most vocal supporters of Israel in this country. I hope these videos and links help clear up any questions you may have. As a reminder, Charlie is not Candace, referring to Candace Owens, and Candace is not a TPUSA employee. If you have specific questions about Candace's comments or views, we suggest you contact her directly. However, these videos and links should provide clarity on Charlie's positions and views. Isn't that hilarious? We're going to tell you how Charlie feels about this particular subject as a giant organization. Because we speak for Charlie because we make Charlie talk. We have our hands so far up his backside, we're scratching the back of his teeth, and we're moving his mouth and his jaw just in the direction and in the speed in which we like it. That's basically their statement. They go on here. They say Charlie has been to Israel twice. Ooh. And Israel and the Jewish people hold a special place in his heart. Again, who's doing the talking here? Additionally, it is worth noting that TPUSA, as an organization, supports Israel in a number of ways, including but not limited to. They're all including but not limited to. Have you noticed that? They're like, it's included but not limited to, and here's what we're going to tell you, but there's other things that we're not going to tell you. Hosting an annual Young Jewish Leadership Summit. Sending 100+ students to Israel for educational trips, sending an Israel-specific activism kit, quote-unquote, that's code word for Bolshevism, to hundreds of high school and college campuses each year. I'm going to repeat that. Sending an Israel-specific activism kit to hundreds of high school and college campuses each semester. But if I say the Jewish lobby is infiltrating and has infiltrated all colleges and universities across the country, I'm the anti-Semite, and yet they admit to it. It's incredible. This has to be a mental disorder. It says, welcoming Dennis Prager and other Jewish thought leaders, that's nice, to our national events, and hosting pro-Israel social media trainings for TPUSA ambassadors and online influencers, unquote. Doesn't it sound like it's that Justin Haskins guy who works over there at the Blaze with Glenn Beck? When I talked about that last week, that Mercury One Freedom Movement, whatever the hell it was called thing. You know, we will take all your resumes, and it's an internship over the summer and for at least 4, 5, 6 months, and you're not going to get paid, but we're going to select 3 or 4 of you and we're going to train you and see if we can work together. I mean, this is what this is. That right there is the Jewish lobby. That is the infiltration instead of the invasion. There are groups like that all over the place. TPUSA is just one of them. The Mercury One, Justin Haskins thing. I mean, that whole internship thing, that's another. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. I don't know how to end all of this other than I'm just pointing this out on a consistent basis, and I've now done it again for 50 straight minutes to point out to people not only the hypocrisy, but the blatant, illogical behavior that's taking place here, and that it's being done to take over our country. And yes, I understand it's already happened. I fully get it, and I don't like it any more than anybody else. But something has to give here. This dam has to break. And people have to realize that they're being manipulated in all of these facets of society on purpose by this lobby because they have the control. That control has to slip. Somehow, some way, it's got to give way eventually. Too many people are noticing this. Too many people are waking up because it's too flipping obvious. It's just too obvious. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to end with this. This was a declassified copy of a letter written by the Honorable Henry Cabot Lodge, Jr., Chief Delegate to the United Nations from United States, addressed to Park Avenue, New York, New York. This was written on November 9th of 1956. And this is, let's see, it's copied to the Chief Delegate of all member nations of the United Nations. And they were writing specifically to someone. The person's name, however, is blacked out that they were writing this to. And this was declassified on February 12th of 1985. Here's what it says. Quote, "Dear Sir, the following is in answer to the paid advertisements appearing in the New York newspapers under the caption, quote, 'Suddenly the Middle East explodes. Why?' Unquote." First of all, I'm going to apologize in advance. This is typeset, and it's spaced out oddly, and it's a little tough to read. So if I'm pausing, then my apologies. But here's what it says. It says, quote, "In November 1916, the World Zionist Organization at London, England, submitted a proposition along the following lines to Great Britain. The World Zionist Organization proposed that organization use its influence amongst the world Jewry to bring the United States of America into World War I on the side of the Allies, provided that Great Britain, in exchange for this service, would set aside the territory known as Palestine, then held under a joint trusteeship by Great Britain and France, and to permit the establishment of the State of Israel in the trusteeship-held territory. In November 1917, the white paper called the Balfour Agreement was promulgated, France having agreed to the terms of the proposition. The Balfour Agreement succeeded in bringing the United States of America into World War I in May of 1917. Along with the surrender of the sovereignty of this country. It says the cause of the Middle East explosion is due to the fact that the State of Israel, established under the terms of the Balfour Agreement, is holding Great Britain and France to the condition of that agreement. The action on the Suez Canal incident is a covering alibi for Great Britain and France to undermine the vested interests in the native displaced people of the Middle East for the security and safety of the State of Israel." And then the last paragraph says, "A scheme that reveals how the actions of all nations in the world are dominated at one and the same time by the operators of the religion of Judaism, a political scheme, the resulting devastating effects of which have no parallel in world history. A scheme uncalled for and unnecessary for the welfare of humanity and the progress of civilization, a scheme that will be listed in history as one of the acts of inequity created by the operators of the religion of Judaism, unquote. Sure seems like somebody on the inside had it figured out. And it sure seems like someone on the inside wanted individuals to know what was really going on and how this grip was not going to loosen or slacken in any way whatsoever. So there you have it. Who knows? Maybe he was just lying, Sean. Maybe he was just blackmailed into writing such a thing and blah, 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 just to confuse people. I highly doubt it. It sounds rather authentic, and it certainly continues to exist to this day. So there you have it. Okay, moving on here. Education things. First of all, there was this. In fact, I'm just very quickly going to mention this just as a quick follow-up. Again, the West Virginia shot put team, those girls again, apparently now a judge has blocked the suspension of those middle school female athletes who refused to compete against a male who was pretending to be a female. So there you have it. Again, the school district or the multiple districts or the competitive conference or whatever it was suspended all of them and said, well, you're off the team because you don't want to participate and blah, blah, blah. And a judge said, no, it doesn't work that way, apparently. So here's what they said. It says a West Virginia judge granted a preliminary injunction allowing several middle school girls to compete after the school district banned them from competition after refusing to play against a biological male, according to 12 WBOY, a local media outlet. Again, the 5 female athletes fortified their positions at a track meet in April after they were informed that they would have to compete against a biological male, promoting the school district to allegedly bar the girls from future competitions. It says the students sued. The Republican Attorney General Patrick Morrisey of West Virginia filed an amicus brief in support of the students. A Harrison County judge ordered that the school's decision be temporarily halted while the lawsuit plays out, according to 12 WBOY. Again, I've said this before and I'm going to say it one more time here. Children are not political pawns. There is a war going on in our country. The battlefield is vast. The school is certainly the battlefield and a battlefield in this war, which is one of many reasons to, of course, pull your children out permanently. But disassociating from this kind of a competition in particular, I should say, not for the purposes of wanting to exercise or have fun or camaraderie or what have you. You want to play those games for that, go for it. But at the same time, in a moment like this, when a political statement is attempting to be made by a singular individual to ruin it for everybody else, that's good enough reason to walk away from it permanently. As I've said, there's no I in team. Therefore, this individual can't logically compete if there's nobody else to compete with. They're not going to just give them all of the trophies just because they're the only ones throwing a shot put or chucking a javelin or whatever the hell they do. I mean, they're not going to do that. Just get your children off of the battlefield and educate them about the battlefield from a distance. They don't have to be on it. They don't have to be used and be the political focus and the political pawns of all of this. This never used to be the case in our country, the way that it is now. And again, you would think that this would motivate those parents and those students to walk away from all of this nonsense and then do the real history and investigation and real learning as to why this is taking place in our society. Now, in the first 50 some odd minutes, I just laid out why it's happening. It's pretty clear. But there are people that don't want to come to grips with that reality. And I'm sorry for that, but that's not my problem. There's more learning that can take place in society, but it is not going to happen on the battlefield of the school environment. Certainly not in a competitive setting where you have a tranny walking around pretending to be something they're not, and we're all just supposed to go along with it. It's disgusting. So yeah, get them off. Anyway, there was also this. This was making the rounds, and I don't know, honestly, if this is real or not, or if this is just kind of one of those Facebook posts that gets made, for the purpose of stirring up some controversy or, waking people up to this particular issue. Again, it doesn't seem like any police reports were certainly filled out. I mean, an SRO was involved. But anyway, this has to do with school security, specifically involving school-sanctioned laptops. And Jesse James threw this my way. And this is from a Tiffany Nicole on Facebook, and it says the following. It says, my son goes to Glenmar Elementary School, which apparently is in Baltimore, Maryland. Unless there's another Glenmar Elementary School some other place. But either way, it says he's in kindergarten, and then they said, well, on April 11th of this year, 2024, he was completing a homework assignment on his school laptop. It glitched out almost as if someone was listening in. I took the laptop and started investigating. I found a screen recording that was taken January 26th at 7:10 a.m. of a video that was recorded in my home from the school laptop on the night of Thursday, January 25th. I emailed Zachary's teacher immediately with questions, and I got no response. So I took it to the principal, Miss Neary, on the 16th of April, 2024. I sat down with her and showed her these videos saved to Zachary's computer. Her first reaction was, quote, this is bizarre. She was apparently going to send the laptop off to the IT guy. I've asked to make a report with the SRO of the school and been denied name and number. The principal called me on the 18th of April, 2024, and told me, quote, they found nothing and tried leaving it at that. The same day, there were files deleted off of Zachary's Google Drive at 3:37 p.m. It says on the 29th of April, 2024, I had a parent-teacher conference with Zachary's teacher, Miss Ellinger. I asked her, quote, how Amara recording my son in my home without knowledge is helping him progress, unquote. And she called the principal down, and that's when the principal told me the laptops don't record, and there are no recordings. But I have a 30-minute screen recording that was taken Friday morning of a 45-minute recording that was taken Thursday night in my house. Recording personal and private conversations. My son's Amira assignment, A-M-I-R-A, I don't know what that is paused and still recording. My son closes the laptop and it's still recording audio. I received a certified letter in the mail from Glenmar Elementary School banning me from the property. I had my lawyer reach out to Principal Neary, and she refuses to answer, but she called me and emailed me after my lawyer tried getting in contact with her, and I told her she needed to contact him, and she refuses. Watch your kids' school devices and watch where you send your kids to school, unquote. Again, I have no proof that this actually happened. It's certainly interesting, and I'm not denying that technology and school-related technology can do that. It's just, this is a police report. Fill out a police report. Go to the police. This goes way beyond a lawyer. I mean, you need to fill out police reports for this kind of thing. And yes, you need to pull your child out permanently and never send them back. Again, this is not an issue that any homeschooling family ever has to deal with under any circumstance whatsoever. Not to mention, is this something that would easily get CPS involved? They take these videos. Anybody has access to those Google Drives. Certainly the IT person does, and certainly school individuals do who possess the passwords of the students themselves. And then those particular videos, again, are used or anonymously sent, I should say, to CPS for the purpose of scooping up a kid inside of a child's home, or, again, separating the parents from the child, and a number of other things. It's highly possible. Either way, it's just another reason to never send your kids there ever again. So, yeah. School-sanctioned technology is disgusting, frankly. It should be suspicious to everybody as to why they're all supposed to use the same device and they're not allowed to use different devices or use their own devices. Now, I know that there's technological reasons for that. They don't want viruses infiltrating their Wi-Fi system and, being transferred into the district servers and 1,000 other reasons. But, yeah, this is beyond nefarious, and it's beyond evident that it was set up like this on purpose. Again, if for no other reason than certainly, again, spying on children or activating the camera in children's bedrooms or bathrooms even, or wherever they have their laptops or are working on their laptop or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's a police report is the whole point. If it's real, it's a police report. You never go to the inside and let the people on the inside know. You always conduct a police investigation, but first, of course, you have to go to multiple police departments, sheriff's department, local police, township police, outside police, people who aren't associated with the town even. I mean, this is the avenue to go in. But again, the closed-lipped nature of that, if it is in fact real, from the actual school employees is rather telling. Again, the things that they either know or don't know that are going on in their environments are a mile long. It's beyond gross, but that's because they're gross environments. So there you go. Okay, here's the last thing, jab-related. I'm actually shaking my head because this piece of audio that you're going to listen to, again, is just over 5 minutes long. And what's not being discussed in this audio is the part that's actually the most important in my opinion. This is the audio that you can also see in its entirety, face-to-face, of course, if you actually want to see their lips moving, of Chris Cuomo and a guest that he has on his show who is jab injured. Now, the so-called right-wing media is focusing in on a very specific issue with this audio clip, which is that you hear Chris Cuomo openly state that he's had his blood tested having been jabbed, and it too is not normal, so he says. Therefore, he is also jab injured, and everybody's piling on and going, oh, Chris Cuomo's jab injured, just like everybody else who took the shots, and now he's figuring it out, and now he's playing the victim, and what a hypocrite, because he was calling for people to get jabbed or have their rights taken away, and blah, 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 and isn't this hilarious and hypocritical and everything else. Again, in my humble opinion here, while all of that is, I don't want to say satisfying, but it's certainly, the chickens are coming home to roost. There's no doubt about that. And it's not shocking. Again, if Chris Cuomo is really jabbed, as he claims to be, even after having so-called COVID, whether he was jabbed before or after, which of course COVID doesn't exist, there's a clip in this that is the far more important part, I should say, because it's far more reaching. Not to mention, almost everything that's mentioned in the clip is a lie. Not when it comes to jab-damaged individuals or the blood work coming back as being toxic. That's all real, as we all know. But there's a couple of points, one in particular that his guest actually says, that is being missed by almost everybody in the media here, and certainly the right-wing media, as one might call it, Gateway Pundit in particular, and they're not focusing on the much larger problem. Now, of course, we have to ask the question, why aren't they focusing on the much larger problem? Now, as we know, the much larger problem is that COVID doesn't exist, that there was no pandemic, there are no viruses, virology is a lie, and there's only poison. I've been over this at length, written about it at length, read about it at length. It can't get more obvious. But these are two individuals who are jabbed and allegedly injured. Certainly, the bald guy on the right is. Pictures of him in the hospital wearing a mask in a bed, because all of that makes sense. Probably while he's on oxygen. I mean, the stupidity is overwhelming. But the headline from the Gateway Pundit regarding this clip is, quote, disgraced former CNN anchor Chris Cuomo, who advocated for the COVID vaccine, publicly admits for the first time to suffering from a COVID vaccine injury. That's the headline. The bigger story isn't that, though. It's that this guy admits to having his blood work sent to Germany to only be sent back to him to tell him that while he hasn't had, quote-unquote, COVID, and has never had, quote-unquote, COVID, that his blood work came back negative for, quote-unquote, COVID antibodies. Now, I want that to sink in for just a minute. His blood work came back negative for COVID antibodies, yet he's ill from the shots. Now, what does this mean? Well, it proves everything. It proves everything that's been brought up here. It proves everything that Mike Yeadon has said, what numerous other individuals have said. Again, Dr. Cowan, Kaufman, all of them. COVID doesn't exist. It's not a virus, because viruses aren't real. Therefore, you can't find an antibody to a thing that doesn't exist. You'll never find it. And then, of course, this guy falsely blames long COVID because that's what the doctors told him. Well, this is similar to the symptoms of long COVID. Well, there's no such thing as long COVID. There's only poison, damaged DNA as a result of poison and putting poison in your body, specifically via needle or syringe injection. And then your deteriorating DNA and quote-unquote immune system as a result of having your DNA permanently damaged by poison. That's it. He openly admits all of this while not knowing what he's admitting to. That's the bigger problem here. I don't give a damn about Chris Cuomo. He can jump off a bridge for all I care. He's an idiot. He's a criminal. He's clearly blackmailed. He's a narcissist. That's putting it mildly. Listen to his guest and what his guest says, because that's where the real juice is. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
New York Times released an article that's getting a lot of play that says that there are thousands of people who say they're still suffering side effects they believe from the vaccine and that those have been ignored. Now, one of them is nurse practitioner Sean Barkovich. He says he got his first dose in 2020, had side effects. Just standing up sent his heart racing, stinging pain in his eyes, mouth, groin. Those have gotten a little bit better, but he still has what they call tinnitus. That's a ringing in the ears. We know that vaccines can have unintended consequences, aka side effects, but nobody's really talking about it because they're too afraid of blame and they just want it to go away. But the problem is people like Sean and me and millions of others who still have weird stuff with their blood work and their lives and their feelings, physically, are not going away. Sean Barkovich joins us now. Sean, why do you believe it's the vaccine, and what has happened when you've tried to get clinical analysis of it or answers?
Why do I believe this? It's not a belief, it's a fact. And as soon as I was injured, 15, 20 minutes of my first dose, I had numbness tingling up and down my injected arm that over days spread to my face and my eyes. I went to see a neurologist. He ran some tests. He's like, well, this is all new. We don't know much about it, but the hospital is going to mandate it. You should get a second dose. And everything in my medical mind and in my bones was telling me, no, if you have a reaction after something, don't do it again. But the pressure was immense. And then 3 weeks rolled around, I got a second dose. And after that, everything blew up. I went from being a healthy, 100% healthy, fully functioning nurse to in a complete downward spiral of health. I had a myriad of symptoms.
Have you gotten any clarity from doctors or from the drug manufacturer putting out any information about what could happen as a side effect?
No, as a research nurse practitioner and somebody who worked on vaccine research, I thought after I was injured, there would be people to help me. I'm like, I'm in New York City. I will have there will be medical people ready to help me. There must be interest to find out what happened or what went wrong with me. I reached out to my political representatives. I reached out to the NIH, the CDC, the FDA. I got no answers. No one wanted to touch it. I got token responses back or no response. And so I went on a mission to research myself and help others.
What have you found out? And what do you see in your blood work?
So I sent, in the early days when I couldn't get answers here at home in America, I sent my blood over to Germany. And I had help with connecting with German scientists. They were more interested to help me than people here in my own country.
Now here it comes. Here's what he says. So give this a listen. Again, I'm playing this straight through. I wanted to play this straight through, but this right here is the point that I'm trying to make, because he openly admits this. Give this a listen.
And that testing showed I developed several autoantibodies. Some scientists believe are attributed to this POTS, or positional tachycardia, that you mentioned, where every time I stand, my heart zooms. So some of my autoantibodies look similar to people with long COVID, and I never had COVID. And that was proven through immunological studies of my blood. They could not find any viral antibodies.
No viral antibodies. But he has long COVID, so his doctors say, and yet he's never had COVID. Do you see how confusing this is? This is the lie falling apart. Now, this particular clip was from Texas Lindsay on X. It's a heavily edited clip. I mean, it's shortened down. The conversation must have been longer. But he's openly admitting again that his doctors told him that he had not virus in him of any kind, quote unquote virus. They don't exist. He had poison in his bloodstream, and certainly throughout his entire body, of course. But his doctors were basically telling him, you essentially have AIDS. You have an autoimmune response that we have, quote unquote, never seen before. Well, that's what AIDS is. So he's being told he has AIDS. He doesn't know he's being told he has AIDS. He's being told he has an autoimmune response that's remarkably high, which is indicative of having AIDS, brought on by the shots. That's the real juice in all of this. It's not that Cuomo's jab injured. It's not even that his guest is jab injured. It's specifically what his guest is saying about what doctors were saying was going on with him, even though, unfortunately, they're still perpetuating this long COVID lie and numerous other lies, like there is actual COVID. To me, this continues to prove, or should prove to anybody listening, that COVID isn't real. It doesn't exist. And yes, it's only the shots. That's what's causing people to become ill. That's it. That's about it. Yes, there's 5G towers. Yes, there's electromagnetism and being shed on from the jabbed. Of course, all of that's legit and all of that's real. Poison in our food, chemtrails. Of course, all of that. But what this guy is saying, again, is highlighting a much larger problem that people are apparently unaware of. There is no COVID. Never was. I'll wrap up the audio here, so give this a listen.
To get out in front of this. I mean, nobody's going to get patted on the back for saying, yeah, Sean's right. There's side effects on some of the vaccines or all of the vaccines that we should be talking about and figuring out how to treat. And there is long COVID and there's lots. Nobody wants to say that because it's all political now.
Right. And we're caught in the crosshairs of the politics. I thought all my pro-vaccine colleagues that championed me on would be there to lift me up and help me. And in fact, they're the ones who turned around, dismissed, denied, and tried to censor and bury me. They're afraid that by showing my face, I'll drive vaccine hesitancy. But what they don't realize, and what I have come to realize, is that the censorship and the hiding of it is actually fueling vaccine hesitancy. If the government had just said, hey, these are novel vaccines. We don't, there will be reactions. Let's just have a program in place to deal with them.
Right.
Set up a fund to obligate the manufacturers to provide help or research. I think the citizens would have appreciated that. But instead, what happened is they just suppressed me. And that also shocked me. When I tried to reach out online, Facebook, Instagram, they would tag my messages as if I'm misinformation.
Yeah. That's right.
And I'm just a desperate person that something bad happened to, and I'm reaching out and pleading for help.
Well, let me tell you something, Sean. I can't help you because I'm no clinician. I'm sick myself, but I'm working with people who are working on this. So I'll make sure that we're in touch right after the show, and I'll help any way I can. You may be ahead of me. I'll hook you up with my clinicians, and maybe you can share different protocols and things that may help. But I will never stop reporting on this. And all I'm doing is just beating the drum of you need to have a 9/11 style commission to figure out what worked and what didn't and what questions need to be answered because it's not over. So not only are we not set up for the next pandemic, and there will be one, but we're not treating people, millions of people who still have problems from the last one. Sean, thank you very much for sharing your story. I'll be in touch.
It's classic narcissism. He's a narcissist. Now he's the expert. The jabbed guy who wanted everybody's rights taken away, and if you don't get jabbed, well, then you're going to make us sick, and blah, 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 and all that fairy tale that he believed and pushed on CNN with Don Lemon back in the day. He's a full-blown narcissist. We'll be in touch. I've got experts on this. They're treating me because I'm jab injured, and I now know more about it, and you know I'm out on the forefront of this, and blah blah blah, and I'm never going to stop talking about this. He's bringing it up because he thinks that having these conversations is now profitable because he's seeing people who have been talking about this, and they're making money. I'm not making money on this, but they are. Lots of them are. They're making these tours. They're making these rounds. They're on stages. They're doing 1,000 things. The flippin' wellness company, for God's sakes. They're a part of the problem, too. They're perpetuating the lies also. The lie of virology, the far bigger lie, although, you know, you can take your pick. But, of course, he said long COVID doesn't exist. And he mentioned a 9/11 style commission. Are you kidding me? Of all of the references to make, he wants to have a 9/11 style commission. You must be kidding. The 9/11 report was fraudulent. It was fake. It was put together by the same people who were bought off by the people who did it. The Jewish lobby. And, of course, us and our government and foreign governments. But even so, again, horrible reference. horrible example. But he's a fool. And he's a narcissist. Again, it's not his narcissism or even the fact that he's jab injured, so he says that is the story there. The story is that the guy just proved with his own singular experience that viruses aren't real. There's no viral antibodies that they're fighting a particular virus. That his immune system is compromised, ergo he has AIDS as a result of the shots. But don't worry, his doctors call it long COVID. Or so they say, symptoms of long COVID, because they want to deny that it could possibly be, quote unquote, vaccine related. It's not a vaccine, it's a biological weapon. These people are late to the party. And now they're trying to get some, I don't know, financial clout or piece of the pie, so they think, because they think that there's a pie to be able to have. This is not a good pie to cling on to. And they're always going to be wrong. But don't worry, Chris Cuomo is on top of it, and he's not going to drop this subject because he's hearing too much about it now. We don't care. We've been on this since 2020. So, yeah. But nice admission there. Again, it's in the hidden little things. If the media says pay attention to the fact that Chris Cuomo admits that he's jab injured, ladies and gentlemen, there might be more in the audio that people aren't focusing on that highlight the much bigger problem. Thank you for listening. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end it there, and I will catch you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care, and God bless.